Hello, everyone. I'm Charlie, and welcome back to another DraftKings DFS slate breakdown. A humble two-game Premier League slate on our hands here. Very much a light Saturday in general. It's only like what, four total games? Everything kind of going more towards Sunday, which kind of sucks. But in terms of this slate here, two game, like I said, Chelsea is the big favorite, minus 250 against Sunderland, and then Newcastle, favorable odds against Fulham as well, minus 160 there. In terms of our goal contribution odds, like João Pedro. EU, who scored against who did they play? Ajax it was in Champions League. Terry George also is like the three minus odds guys. And then for Newcastle, Voltamata, the low minus odds guy there. Voltamata has just been really good for Newcastle. Makes a ton of sense that they'd have him with those odds when what has been kind of a bit of a lackluster offense. He's kind of been like the lone bright spot, really. Oh, and Gordon, who going to be an interesting play that we'll talk about in a little bit here. In terms of our predicted lineups, though, for set pieces, it should be a Trippier monopoly in this team. However, like you could have Murphy or Gordon maybe take something here and there. I also watch out for if Tonali is in. If he starts, becomes a little bit messy between Trippier and Tonali. They both kind of take when they feel like it. There's not really a ton of structure there. And then for Fulham in this team, it should be a Lukic monopoly, I think. I don't really see any competition there. I think Harry Wilson, yeah, is dealing with that knock, which did open up sets a little bit for Lukic. When it's Wilson in, it's usually more of a split between those two guys. Chelsea and Sunderland. Chelsea should be Neto and Reece James in this team. However, Estevao, Enzo, they can take a corner here and there too. And then for Sunderland, it should be Trey Hume and Shaka splitting. However, Lafite takes quite a bit of set pieces, like usually free kicks and stuff, and he might end up popping on corners at some point again, just because they didn't have a corner last game. Sunderland on they only had one corner. I think it was Shaka's side. So who knows? Like Lafitte could end up starting to eat into Trey Hume's role. It is after international break when you see teams kind of shuffle set pieces. A lot of the time, we just didn't have a corner on the usual Trey Hume side to kind of make sure that it is still him. So just Trey Hume should take, but I just take it with a grain of salt. Now, in terms of our pricing here, Elanga, most expensive forward at 8,800. I don't really know where they came up with that. That's been okay, but not great. I don't really get the price tag here. If I'm being honest, I don't even think he'll start. But he's there. Garnacho 8,600. Fine, I guess. Like Chelsea are going to be the team to stack here. I think mostly just because they are playing Sunderland at home, who I think could get found out here a little bit. Sunderland have been pretty good this season, but like they got beaten pretty convincingly by Man United, who, as we know, are not great most of the time. So I think this could be like a pretty convincing Chelsea win. So I think all their plays end up in pretty good spots. Like Pedro Neto, he's kind of your cashy forward option. Takes corners, gets a ton of crosses. He's probably the safest kind of forward option here. And then you got Voltamata, who I could see getting some ownership just because he's been so good. 4 goals in 5 games, as you can see. 3 on the bounce here in the Premier League. Like he's just solid forward here. And on these two gamers, there's not a ton of kind of differentials, basically. Like Chelsea and your Newcastle guys are all going to pick up some ownership. If you really want to get different, you maybe try to pick more Fulham and Sunderland here, but like they're going to be low owned for a reason. It's not a pretty, pretty not a great spot for either of those teams. Other forwards like Estevao, I never mind. If you see like Estevao start instead of like Pedro Neto, maybe they go with I don't know, say Neto or not. Sorry, not Neto. Estevao and like Garnacho on the wings. I think that could really open up Estevao's value just because he should end up with a side of sets in that scenario. He's just cheaper than Neto, and I think they're pretty similar players too. So even with Neto in, like I just cheap Chelsea exposure, he's a solid little option. Evan, if he starts, he's had some corners here and there. I don't know if he necessarily take over Sasalukic, but there's a chance. And like he's a pretty fun forward for Shakhtar. Hasn't started for Fulham yet in the league, but he's not a bad little player. Like if you look at his logs here, he's getting a ton of points for the amount of minutes he's playing. He's getting like 4, 5, 6 points in just like 10, 20-minute cameos, which just shows how good his floor can be if he gets like a 90-minute go in him. No, Anthony Gordon, like he's just wildly underpriced. I have no clue how they've come up with that. He's been priced down on a slate with less teams, and it just doesn't make any sense. He's cheapest that he's been. He was really good against Benfica in the Champions League, like 3,900. This is a no-brainer play as well, likely. Even though I don't know if you need the salary that much, but like he's just one of the better forwards here. He's just insanely underpriced. Midfielders now, Enzo. He's kind of like a Chelsea attacker when Reece James is in, just because he doesn't have set pieces, so he loses his floor somewhat. So he's basically like an upside kind of attacker play, especially when he's in like this deeper role too. Like I think it cuts off a lot of appeal for him. I don't love this play. If we see Reece James in and we see him in this deeper role, like if they have João Pedro and Cam, if like João Pedro's a striker saying Enzo's further forward, I think that opens him up a little bit more, just because then he's just another attacker. But once again, he's an expensive play at 9,200 without set pieces. Like I don't love the play even under the best of cases. It just like to really make Enzo really worth it for that 9K price tag to me. I want to see no Reece James. I want to see him further forward, and then I like Enzo as a play. Otherwise, I think he's just kind of more of a GPP differential. I mean, maybe he doesn't pick up. Maybe he goes a little bit under owed because of that overprice. But I don't love that play. I'm gonna be honest. Tonali, if he does start, I like him as an option. Super solid for floor. Just gets there. Even when he like relinquishes a share of sets to Trippier, like he gets a ton of just points. It's his crosses, key passes, shots, plays 90 minutes when he's healthy. That's why he's questionable. He's got that illness that he's been dealing with. But if he plays, like I just think he's a solid little player. Gary Wilson, if he ends up starting, he's probably your best third team option on this slate, just because he's a set piece taker, attacker, not a ton of really alternatives on Sunderland and the other Fulham guys. I don't think he'll start, but I'd watch out if he's in. Shaka, that's a little third team exposure there. 5,900, that's not a terrible spot. He's been okay. He's fine, I think. A two gamer, you can get away with a little bit lesser floor just because there's less floor guys. So his floor of 6 might not be good in like a 6 or 7 game slate, but on this two gamer, you can definitely get away with it, especially with how lopsided these two matchups could be. Left B, I don't mind either. He's been pretty good. Like you kind of up and down at times, but if you want to take a chance on him, hopefully having set pieces again, he was awesome in the championship when he took a ton of corners. Like he definitely come back to that at some point, and it might be worth trying to get early on him here, especially with just it only being a 2 game slate. Other guys, I don't think there's a ton here. I think the only other name probably worth mentioning is where is he? Did I miss him? Yeah, Sasa Lukic, 4,900. If it's that particular lineup, should have a monopoly. It's a solid third team option. Get off of your Newcastle and Chelsea pieces. He's pretty good when he starts. He's just a solid little set piece taking option. Doesn't do anything crazy, but he crosses his corners. He gets some tackles, foul runs here and there. Just kind of your safe kind of DFS kind of player. Defenders now, Trippier, another guy who you're probably just playing here at 6,700. Just a good player. A little bit past it now, considering he's a little bit older. But when he starts, he's just solid. And you kind of take what you can get on these 2 game slates. So give me Trippier, solid. Reece James, kind of the same thing. Set pieces, just gets there. Solid. Like Reece James, Trippier are going to soak up a ton of ownership on this slate just because they're very get toable with some of the pricing here. And they're set piece taking defenders when there's not a ton of alternative here. Trey Hume, decent all right option, I'd say. Got that assist against Wolves, which I'd say was a bit of a bailout. Like he only had 4 crosses. He would have had like 10 points, well 3 less too. If he count the clean sheet, he would have had what? 6 for the assist, another 3 for the clean sheet. He would have had like 8 floor, which is okay. But yeah, it wasn't looking good for him a lot of the time. They didn't have any corners, and he's a little bit of a corner reliant player at times. But like once again, 2 game slate, pickings are slim. He's fine. Other guys, like I think those are the top 3 defenders here, and then I think you're largely looking at center back punts. Those are probably the true differential on these little 2 game slates for GPP, especially because the center backs are become who are the like most low owned guys, just because especially on this slate, people are going to gravitate towards your James, your Trippier, your Trey Hume potentially, and the guys who would get overlooked, like they end up like in the max 10% ownership, are your like Dan Burns and well, it's Anderson. This is the wrong Anderson, but the Anderson that plays for Fulham. Like these are the kind of guys who end up being kind of your if you want to go for true differential plays, like these like center backs are going to be the lowest owned guys on the slate in comparison to how chalk most of the other players are going to be with just how limited pickings are on a 2-game slate. Goalkeeper, crapshoot, as I always say, do whatever you wish with it. And in terms of a core, I think you're starting Reece James or Trippier here probably. I think you're just going Gordon. Like it's really that simple. Like it's just not a ton to really talk about on a 2-game slate. Like I'd play Gordon forward likely, but you can even use him at mid. He's got that utility. But yeah, just not a super complicated slate here. I think kind of just pick your guys, stack your Chelseas, your Newcastles. If you want to get a little bit different, maybe you can put a little bit more Sunderland Fulham in there. But yeah, guys, that'll be it. I'll see you for the next one. Peace.